Our topic for today is hacking the greatest risks. How difficult is it just to understand the value of your assets? How would you determine what that is?
I think it can be challenging. Hopefully, security isn't alone in kind of assessing the value of those assets or the data, but we're working with business units ultimately and hopefully who are responsible for kind of the ownership of those resources.
Security practitioners are held to this really interesting standard of having complete awareness.
My experience has been that it's not often you'll come across board members who have maybe an IT background or especially, say, a security background, maybe some operations.
Right.
So they understand risk from a kind of a different perspective, right? They're thinking about it as a matter of cost.
Have you used the FAIR model, and how is it good or bad for that matter?
I like FAIR as an overall framework. I think one of the things that people do have to be recognized is that it does require a level of maturity for the organization. The problem I think that happened probably like 15 years ago is a lot of security leaders would spend $100 to protect a $5 risk because they said, hey, we just got to spend it all and we're just going to protect that. And so we lost a lot of credibility going along the way.
I think FAIR has done it, to Anthony's point. It is a difficult beast to kind of do from soup to nuts, especially to implement it across the organization. But one thing that is, I think, very valuable with it is the vocabulary around risk.
Recall the Ashley Madison breach from.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
There's an interesting piece of where the company thought they were in the business of protecting credit card information. That was not their business. Their business was protecting the privacy of their customers, right? So there's an aspect of where the security leadership team should have actually been able to say, hey, what business are we actually in?
What's worse, losing all Overstock's credit card data or of customers, or what it was, losing the purchase history of every single customer?
When we're talking about something that's controlled or under regulation, or say PCI as it relates to credit card data, there are obviously going to be fines. If we're looking at this from a cost perspective, so there's a lot more risk.
Direct fine connected to losing history of purchases.
There is still going to be a cost, right?
Right.
It's kind of those soft or hidden costs. So when you ask what's worse, I think the loss of credit card data is going to be worse.
Imagine that the organization rubs a genie lamp and they say, hey, tomorrow your company is going to make $10 billion, but you got to turn off every single security product. Now, that executive leadership team.
By the way, that's a good what's worse question.
They will have a conversation about it. Right? They, right, wrong, or indifferent, they will have a conversation about the impact versus trade-off. And the question for the CISO and the security leaders is, will you be invited to the conversation? In the moment that there is a rampant zero day, and in the moment that there's a NotPetya thing going on, the security leader, in general, wants to be able to say, that's unacceptable. No, we have to take care of it. And so when you get to that scenario, we have security leaders saying, no, I don't own the risk unless I suddenly want to own the risk. I've spent time with security vendors who've come in, and what they've actually done is they say, I'll ask them a question like, hey, do you tell me what my business is? Because they want to sell a product and they actually don't even know what finance does. They actually don't have the context. They just have a hammer and they assume that there's a nail somewhere in that building. As leaders, we make the best decisions we can with the information that we have available. And so that might be insight on, hey, these are the current capabilities of the team. This is where we're ultimately going to be moving towards. And so making sure that you have an actual roadmap that gets your organization to a more meaningful, healthy place. So making sure that you can say, hey, listen, this is the plan. We factored in the data, we factored in the industry, the intelligence of what's kind of going on, and we're executing well against the plan.
I think it's an ongoing conversation of just, it's not an if it's going to happen. Clearly, we always say when it happens. Sure. But the confidence level, I believe, is just something that isn't quantifiable. I'm curious to know how you guys build that level of confidence in your executive team and then bring that as a report.
Again, it really goes down to understanding that overall level of maturity. So how are you benchmarking the organization? As a leader, and when you're communicating with the board and the rest of the leadership team, you may very deliberately say, we are not going to have the best security operations center analysts.
if there is fraud in your organization that might be related to those types of things, and you're bringing in a solution to combat or mitigate some of the efforts around that, having a before and after, right? We see this as a risk to the business, but really understanding how other business units in the organization operate and think about risk.
I think that Honda, Starbucks, organizations like that, where they actually take and expect leaders to be practitioners, that would probably be the most important thing. I would say a lot of the security technology people, they grew up in technology, and so they actually never had to deliver the P&L. They never actually had to make the coffee. They never actually had to pack shipping, if you will. And so when you do that, and you have some aspect of a rotation into a line of business, you understand the risk and you can make a different level of decisions.